crossroads, and then we have to decide what direction to go in. So I thought before I make any decisions, I should just disconnect from all the sound and the noise around me. So I went to India when I was 21, and that was really a life-changing time. I spent 6 months there living in an ashram, and decided to come back and become a monk, which was, I guess, had its challenges. There are people around you who love you, who care for you, and who have so many aspirations for you. In other words, your mom. And it was tough because I wanted to make all those people happy. But I also realized that I need to find myself, and I need to be able to offer the best of myself to those people as well. And so I made a difficult decision to become a monk, and sure enough, I told my parents, I'll just be away for a year, I'll be back. And then a year became 2, 2 became 10, and nearly 25 years later, I still live as a monk, still learning. And my mom's happy, so don't worry, she's cool. And but it's a beautiful. Hi there, nice to see you. It's a beautiful journey. I think you never stop being a student. Like sometimes when I go around and I discuss with audiences, I play the role of being a teacher, but actually I feel like I'm learning as much just from being with you, from hearing all of you, and I'd love to hear all of you today. We'll try to make it quite interactive. And behind all the names, we're just spiritual beings trying to find happiness. When I was born, my mom gave me the name Sandeep. Then I became a monk and they started calling me Bhakta Sandeep. That's what happens when you join a temple. And then you get an ordained name when you take a spiritual initiation, and I became Sutapa Das. And nowadays I travel around the world and they call me a Swami. And then sometimes I think behind all of those names is just the soul searching for love, searching for God. Like that, we're all actually on the same journey. So I hope we'll have a beautiful evening tonight together. And we'll just begin with a little bit of chanting. Is that okay? Yeah. So please do follow along. We'll sing the beautiful Hare Krishna mantra. I'll just begin just myself saying a few prayers to A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada, who was the one who really brought this mantra to the world by his deep compassion and kindness. He introduced the world to this sound vibration which continues to resound in all the towns and villages and continues to touch many, many hearts, and remains a beautiful source of spiritual connection for all of us. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Presthaya Bhutale Shrimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shrivasadi Gaura Bhaktavinda. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Rama. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Rama, Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Hare Rama. Jai Nitai, Gaura Premanande, Hari Hari Bol. Thank you so much. Connected? It's connecting. Okay. So, just before we begin the discussion, is anyone here like for the first time ever, like to a gathering like this? Okay, don't worry, we won't want you to do anything embarrassing. Wonderful, thank you so much for coming, for being open-minded. These are like evenings where we all get together and we have some spiritual discussion. Sometimes we need to just disconnect from life. When I was traveling as a monk in India, I once met someone and I asked him for some advice for my spirituality, and he said, every year disconnect for 1 month, every month disconnect for 1 day, and every day disconnect for 1 hour. And then he looked at me and he said, disconnect to connect. And I looked at him and I was like, you should be on TEDx. But it was very good advice because it always, it kind of stayed with me, and I try to do that still every year. Every year I kind of go away somewhere for a month and I try to just study, read, reflect, meditate, and kind of energize my spiritual self. Every month I try to take a day out. I kind of leave my devices behind, disappear into a park, and just kind of be with myself for a day away from the madness of the world. And every day we try in the morning, we tell people join the 5 a.m. club. And kind of just rise with the sun and take some time just to really set an intention for the day before we begin interacting with everything out there. And so evenings like this are an opportunity to do that, just disconnect and kind of just look at our lives from a different lens and kind of maybe look at some different ways in which we could be approaching our time. Okay. That was just a filler. I was giving you time to get it on screen. But you're not. It's not working, huh? Oh, God. Okay. Well. All right. Yeah, no worries. No worries. I can just keep talking. No worries. So I'm just going to sing some Sanskrit prayers because, prayers work. Before we begin any spiritual discussion, we just try to really set ourselves up for kind of absorbing this knowledge. A lot of the things that I'll say to you today and we'll discuss together are probably things that you've heard before. Sometimes it's not about hearing new things, but it's about hearing the same things. It's okay, I don't need this. It's about hearing the same things, but trying to absorb them into a deeper space in our consciousness. And so what we do is when we say these Sanskrit prayers or we take a moment to reflect before a spiritual discourse, then what happens is it just helps us to kind of open up and be more present and try to absorb that knowledge in a deeper way. So I'm just going to say some very basic prayers, and if you don't know the prayers, don't worry about it. You can just kind of close your eyes, just tune into the sound vibration, and maybe in your heart and mind's eye you can think of someone who's really contributed to your journey, and offer them your gratitude. Om Jnanatimidandhasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Shrimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namine. Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauchari Shashanyavadi Paschatyanadi Shatari Shri Krishna Chaitanya Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Sadigaur Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Thank you so much. Hello to everyone online. Okay, good. Good to go? All right. So today I was thinking what we could discuss. Maybe I was influenced today because we went to the Apple headquarters, and therefore this topic came to my mind of the blueprint of the universe. Blueprints are interesting. You understand what is meant by a blueprint is kind of a kind of explanation of how something works. So for example, countries, they have a blueprint for how they're going to kind of run things. Products have a blueprint in terms of how they function. Organizations have a blueprint of, you know, how they're kind of structured and how they get things done. And in the same way, this whole universe, actually, according to the ancient sages of India, has a blueprint, has a specific way in which it functions. There are certain truths which kind of underpin this reality that we're living in. And the idea is that if we can understand these truths, then what happens is it helps us to make sense of life. Do you sometimes feel as though life is confusing? Right? Things happen and we're kind of like, why is this happening? Is, you know, like it just becomes very, very bewildering and baffling and bemusing to our mind. And therefore we experience a lot of confusion sometimes in our life when we encounter experiences, events, emotions. And so the idea is that once we understand the blueprint of this universe, then everything becomes a lot easier to digest, and we become empowered to actually move forward in a progressive way. So what I'm going to try to do for you today is share with you the blueprint of the whole universe. I can't take any credit for this knowledge. This has been given by Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita. But it is fascinating, and I'll try to show you how powerful understanding these truths can be. But before we do that, I want to ask you a question. Benjamin Franklin once made this statement. Some people die at 25, but they aren't buried till they're 75. It's one of those, don't worry, it's... I want you to just look at that statement and think about it for a second, and kind of nod your head if you think that's true. Some people die at 25, but they're kind of still living around till they're 75. I'm seeing a lot of nods there, yeah. What do you think it is that dies within us at 25, but we still carry on kind of physically living? We're kind of physically existing in this world, but somehow we're not really living. We kind of, something's lost, something has kind of disappeared. What could that thing be that dies at 25? Curiosity, yes. This kind of hunger to know, to learn, to explore. Sometimes, we just... Einstein actually said, never stop questioning. Curiosity has its own reason for existing. But sometimes we stop questioning. It's interesting, when you're a kid, you always, isn't it, like you tell the kid to do something, it's like, why? And they're like, da-da-da-da-da, why? Da-da-da-da, why? Just do it. Right? So it's like, kids are endlessly curious, but then there's a certain time in our life when we just seem to stop questioning, stop challenging. We just kind of seem to accept life for what it is. And maybe at that point, we kind of, something of life is lost when we stop questioning. Thank you. Anything else? Authenticity. Wow, that's a great one. Yeah. They say there's only 2 times in your life when you're really authentic. When you're really young, because you don't really care what everyone thinks. And when you're really old, because you don't have any energy to pretend anymore. And in between, we feel like there's so much inauthenticity. We kind of lose who we are in the noises of the world, the opinions, the expectations. We kind of lose our own heart, our own identity. Thank you, yeah. What else? Passion and purpose. Sorry, who said that? Okay, yeah, thank you. Passion and purpose, yeah. Sometimes we just get into the treadmill of attending to the daily demands, the daily responsibilities, and in the midst of all of that, we forget, what is my purpose? What is my passion? Sometimes we're just attending to the immediate, urgent tasks that we forget what's important to us. Thank you so much, yeah. Was there something? Getting frustrated for simple things, yes. Yes, that sounds like the story of my life. Yes, for sure. Thank you. Yes, what else? What else? Maybe lose, yeah. Past? What do you mean by that? Oh, okay. So what dies within us is this ability to look forward and be creative. And instead of that, we become almost prisoners of the past. We're always kind of like, we're constantly looking back, isn't it? Do you feel like that in your life? Like you're moving forward, but you're constantly looking back. Like, is there something I'm missing out? Why did that happen? What's that person doing? And we don't feel like we're actually conscious in our own life. Thank you. Yes. Anything else? Yes. Enthusiasm. Yes, this is such a big one. Sometimes that hunger for life. There's a beautiful book by someone called Viktor Frankl, and he writes a book, Man's Search for Meaning. And it's his experiences in the concentration camps during that, very, very turbulent time in history. And so he's surrounded by all kinds of atrocious situations. And in his book, he writes something very beautiful. He says, everything can be taken away from a human, but the last human freedom is the freedom to be enthusiastic about life. And he says everything can be taken away, but if that enthusiasm, that hunger, that greed for life itself remains, everything else can be reclaimed. But if we have everything, but we don't have that enthusiasm, then it's almost like we have no life. So thanks. So I often tell people the best alarm clock in the world is purpose. Because when your eyes open and you have enthusiasm, hunger, you jump out of bed. Thank you. Yes?
People lose their sense of adventure.
The sense of adventure. Yeah, kids are like just okay with making mistakes, okay with trying something new, okay with coming out of the comfort zone. But we tend to lose that kind of spirit of making an adventure, taking a risk. They say the most dangerous phrase in the English language is, "We've always done it this way." So when we get into that kind of mode of thinking like, no, I don't want to take a risk, I'm okay. There's always, in life, there's a tension between comfort and aspiration. And we know what we aspire for, but are you willing to give up the comfort? Are you willing to walk that road less traveled, that rocky road? Someone once said to me, the pain of discipline is uncomfortable, but the pain of regret is unbearable. So if we don't follow our dreams, even though it takes risk and adventure, we may end up feeling a bigger pain, regretting, why didn't I try? Yes?
Fear of the future?
Fear of the future. Can you say a little bit more about that? What you mean by that?
Like for instance, right now in America,
Yeah.
there's so much fear because
Yeah.
we're going into a new, everyone's going to be voting in November.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Government coming in, so there's so much fear, and it's being played against each other.
Right.
So.
Yeah, so that fear kind of overshadows our life and we stop living in the present because we're always fearful of what may be. Fear is such a, it's real, it overshadows our life. We're fearful about our health, about our relationships, about our future. We're fearful that when we're happy, we're fearful that it will end. When we're unhappy, we're fearful it will never end. It's just like, it's constantly like this fear. It's interesting, once they asked Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, what do you feel when you chant Hare Krishna? And of all the answers he could have given, he looked at the person and he said, I feel no fear. And that was like, wow, like it's such a profound, and his name actually, AC, we have a kind of school at the temple, so I asked the kids once, like, what does AC Bhaktivedanta say? And one said, after Christ, Bhaktivedanta. And I said, that's very original, it's very good. It's not quite. So AC, that, yeah. The opposite of DC. Yeah, well, AC, as we know, the name AC means Abhay in Sanskrit. Abhay Charanara Vinda. So Abhay, Bhaya means fear. Abhay means no fear. And Charanara Vinda means the divinity whose feet are the kind of shelter of everything. Because they're resting there, then they feel no fear. So yeah, thank you, yeah. So this is very, I'm doing this brainstorm with you because I regularly kind of look at things like this and ask myself, like, am I still living, or am I just like, am I really living? And it really helps us to kind of consider many of these points, because all of these points are things that relate to us. And it's not just like, oh, those people out there, they're all kind of living dead, It happens to us as well, and so it's always good to catch ourselves and ask ourselves, am I living the full potentiality of my existence? I wanted to share something with you that social scientists once found. It's a recent survey I read. They talked about someone's life journey, and they say between the ages of 0 and 25, wisdom and age almost correlate pretty much perfectly. So that pretty much always an 18-year-old is wiser than an 11-year-old. We generally would agree with that. Because wisdom and age have a correlation between 0 and 25. The interesting thing is, between 25 and 75, the interesting thing they found is that there's actually not a direct correlation between wisdom and age. So it's not necessarily that a 40-year-old is wiser than a 30-year-old, or a 60-year-old is wiser than a 50-year-old or a 30-year-old. And the reason they kind of found is that between the ages of 0 and 25, we learn in this world through an educational system. We go to a school, we go to lessons, and we learn things. And therefore, you go through classes and you learn and you become wiser. But after 25, you're not in the educational system anymore. Unless you failed or you're doing like 3 PhDs or something. I'm on my 3rd PhD. I'm still in school. Generally, we're not. So how do you think we learn between 25 and 75? By experience. But experience, then, according to that, a 60-year-old has more experiences than a 30-year-old. I mean, they spend double the time in the world. So then that would mean if we learn through experience, a 60-year-old should be wiser. So it can't just be experience. Failure? Okay. What was that? Social media. Yeah. Failure to learn lessons from. So, and how do you learn lessons from experience? Yep, at the back there. Rejection. Okay. Reflection. Very good. Between the ages of 25 and 75, we learn from experience, but specifically experience that has been reflected on. In other words, those who really reflect on life, reflect on what's happening to them, reflect on the different events and experiences, they're the ones that actually become the most wise. And this is why spiritual literature is so beautiful, so powerful. This is why spiritual gatherings are so life-changing, because here we come into a space where we can actually begin to reflect on life. And maybe if we didn't come into these spaces or we never had books, then we wouldn't really reflect on life, and then we wouldn't really become wiser. And then we wouldn't really maybe find what we're actually looking for. So today we're going to kind of reflect a little bit on the Bhagavad Gita. And this is the ocean. And the reason why I'm kind of beginning this presentation with the ocean is because when I was a kid, I loved going to the ocean and just sitting in front of the ocean. I was a terrible swimmer, so I didn't go into the ocean. But what I would do as a kid, I don't know if any of you did this or do this, I would go in front of the ocean and I would just sit there. And I loved to do that. And sometimes I would just sit there for hours. And what I found is that sometimes in just looking at the vastness of the ocean, all my worries disappeared. It's almost when you look at how that oceanic sight before you, you think like, maybe I'm not so big. Maybe my problems aren't so bad. Maybe it's not as, difficult as I make it out to be. And I always found the ocean to be very, very therapeutic because it helped me to put everything into perspective. And later on in my life, I lived away from the ocean and I couldn't really go there. But later on, what became that ocean for me were the ancient books of wisdom, the scriptures. Because the same feeling that I had when I sat in front of the ocean of everything coming right back into perspective, I began to feel every time I opened the book of wisdom. And specifically today, the Bhagavad Gita. Because every time I opened it, I felt it to be like looking at that ocean and realizing that everything which affects us in such in such profound ways in our heart maybe aren't as bad as we make them out to be. And so today what I want to share with you is that the Bhagavad Gita has some incredible wisdom for us, and specifically I want to share the blueprint of the universe. They say that we have a plan for our life, and usually we've got it all figured out how it's going to be, and the plan is usually something like this. And the reality is something like this. Right? Have you noticed how how many of our lives are like the top picture and how many of our lives are like the bottom picture. So it's like we have so many things to contend with in life, so many ups and downs, so many difficulties, so many unexpected occurrences. It kind of feels like sometimes like, my God, like who's writing the script of my life? Like, I need to have a word with them, you know? So if you ever go in a hospital and they do your the ECG, then it will look something like this, full of ups and downs. If your ECG is a straight line, it ain't good news, my friend. No, life means ups and downs. A straight life means no life. Life is full of ups and downs. So then the natural question comes, why? Why are there ups and downs? But before I answer that question, I want to ask you, what do you think are the 5, let's see if we can get them between us, the 5 things which shift your life trajectory in the most kind of dramatic ways? What things happen in life which cause your life trajectory to just change? Birth of children. Okay. Thank you. I can see you said that with great conviction. Yes. Relationships change. People come into our life and sometimes people leave our lives. And those relationships change the trajectory of our life, right? Yes, yes. Disease, yes. Health difficulties. Yes. Decisions. You have to make decisions. There was once a man, he went to the astrologer and he said, there are 2 ladies in my life. I don't know which decision to make, which will be the lucky one. So he looked into his crystal ball and he said, you will marry the first one, the second one will be the lucky one. So we have all these decisions to make, isn't it? We have all these decisions, who I'm going to live with, where I'm going to live, what job I'm going to do, like all these decisions. It's like, sometimes I'm like so happy, I'm like 43 and I've like made all the major decisions. I'm like, oh, I'm so happy. Like, I'm sure there are more decisions to come, but decision making, yes.
Death of loved ones.
Death of loved ones, this is a huge one. And it's amazing, isn't it? Like, we all know that we have to leave this world. And we all know that the people around us are going to leave this world. And when it happens, we're shocked. It's amazing. And that's a profound point which we'll come back to later on. But it's amazing how death never fails to shock us. And we call it a tragedy. But it's inevitable. It's inevitable. Time and tide wait for no man. We'll come back to that. Thank you. Anything else?
I was saying
With time, everything changes. Fortunes change with time, everything. You lose your hair. I mean, you know, I preempted it. You know, I just like... Yeah, everything changes. Your health changes, your abilities change, your identities change. Everything changes, you know, in time. Constant change.
Your hearing, your
Your
eyesight.
hearing, your eyesight. Yeah, these are, I think you pretty much got all of them. Yeah, our fortunes, you know, things happen, our decisions change our life trajectory, our relationships change, death changes our trajectory. And also the other one that they found was just doubts, you know, like sometimes, you know, like people have like existential confusion in their life, you know, they come to a point where they're just like, who am I? What am I? Where am I going? Like, someone once recently said to me, they said, how old are you? I said, 43. They're like, you're in the zone. I was like, what do you mean? Like a midlife crisis. Because people do, around this age, 45 to 55, sometimes it's like you begin to doubt, question, where am I going? Like, what's the purpose of my life? So then this also changes us. Which subject in school taught you to navigate all of this? You know? It's amazing, isn't it? Maths, geography. Nothing. It's amazing. We learn so many things in life, valuable things. I'm happy I went to school. I studied computer science and management at university, and it helped me. But none of it helped me to deal with this. And it's amazing how we go through life, but we don't grasp any knowledge or wisdom which actually helps us to deal with the inevitable realities that are ultimately what determine our sense of happiness. You can have everything, but if we don't know how to deal with this, then we'll feel displaced. And that's why spiritual wisdom is so important. So these are all turning points. These are the 5 major turning points, and probably some of you are going through these right now. And these turning points are unstoppable. They will definitely come. They're unpredictable. You have no idea when they're going to come. And they're uncontrollable. You have no way in which they will present themselves. And therefore, what is that wisdom that helps us to navigate this journey forward? That wisdom is the wisdom of the Bhagavad Gita. Because interestingly, the Bhagavad Gita encompasses 5 major topics which are considered the blueprint of the whole universe. And the first topic is that the Bhagavad Gita discusses who we are, Atma. And let me just say them first, and then you can kind of think about these and see how they relate to the 5 turning points. The Bhagavad Gita also talks about this world that we're living in. In Sanskrit we say prakriti, or this material nature which surrounds us, this environment, this world, this universe. The third topic of the Bhagavad Gita is action. For every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction. And so that is also discussed. Good actions bring good reactions, and vice versa. The fourth topic of the Gita in Sanskrit is known as kal, or time, which I'll explain in a bit. And the fifth topic of the Gita is Ishvara, divinity or God. Can you begin to see a relation between these topics and these turning points? That if you actually understand these topics, then it can actually help you to deal with these turning points. You have to make decisions. But if you know about the science of karma, then it makes it much easier to understand in any given situation what could be the best course of action. We're all going to have to deal with a turbulent world which is full of different fortunes, the good, the bad, and the ugly. But if we know what is this world, why does this world exist, what is the function of this world, then it becomes much easier to digest those differing fortunes. Death is going to come in our life, but if we understand the role of time and why time exists and why time brings about destruction in this world, it becomes much easier to digest. Relationships will change. But when we understand there is a spiritual connection, spiritual relationships, with relationships which transcend time and space, relationship which is centered around divinity, then what happens is even in the changing relationships of this world, we find a permanent anchor, which means that we don't get displaced. And there are doubts, existential doubts. Who am I? Where am I? What's the purpose of my life? But when we understand our deepest identity, then it makes it very, very much easier to deal with all of our identity crises that we may encounter in this world. And so, if you want to summarize the blueprint of the universe according to the Bhagavad Gita, this is basically it. The first thing is that we're not this body, we're a soul, we're spiritual beings, we're driving this body. When this body dies, we'll continue to live on. We lived before this life, we'll live after this life. Death is not a full stop. Death is just a comma. It's just a gateway to another existence. And this soul, the Atma, is living where? Within this material nature. And what is the soul doing in the material world? It's performing activity. And for activity, there's a concomitant reaction. And in order for one to act, what do they require? What do people don't have enough of? Time. And so the fourth topic is time. How does time function? How does time allow us to get things done? And the fifth topic is divinity, or God, who exists, transcendence, outside of this whole material world. Now this is basically the blueprint of the universe. And if we understand these 5 topics in a deep way, you can basically answer any question that anyone could conceivably come up with. If someone asks, why do bad things happen to good people? This blueprint can answer it. If people ask, why do I have to die? This blueprint can answer it. If people ask, why is it that I have all my material things, but I still don't feel happy? This can answer it. If someone asks, like, why can't I get along with people in this world? This can answer it. If you want to know, there's 2 ladies on the scene. Who should I marry? No, this won't answer that. So practically any significant question that anyone would ever conceivably want to ask, and any question that could possibly cause someone confusion, can be decoded and answered if we understand these 5 topics. And so what basically happens in the dialogue of the Bhagavad Gita is that these 5 topics are explained. The first one, identity. Here's a famous quote. I'm not who I think I am. I'm not who you think I am. I'm who I think you think I am. In the beginning of this talk, someone talked about inauthenticity and how we've become so removed from who we actually are. It's like, yeah, sometimes it's just strange. Sometimes, I don't know if you've ever seen a video of yourself or heard a recording of yourself speak. I tend to find that a lot now. And sometimes I look at myself like, who is that guy? It's so funny, like sometimes if we would watch ourselves, we almost feel a huge inauthenticity. So the topic of karma allows us to understand and embrace who we really are on the material level, on the psychophysical level, and on the deep spiritual level. And this is one of the great gifts of the Bhagavad Gita, that it can actually help you to live your most authentic life. Another topic of the Bhagavad Gita is this world. Shakespeare says, all the world's a stage, and all the men and women merely players. They have their exits and their entrances, and one man in his time plays many parts. And so this really helps us to understand what this world is. It's just a stage. It's not reality, actually. It's just a stage where we're playing different roles. And in our time we have different hats, we play different roles. But what are we beyond all of that roles? What is our life off stage? You know, sometimes there's like Hollywood actors, and what they have to do before they go into a role is they actually have to meditate on this role for like 2 months before actually playing it, to like really enter into it. And then they do like 6 months of filming in this role. And then there's this phenomena where after they've done that and they kind of go back to real life, they can't actually get rid of the role. It's become so ingrained in them that they kind of just like can't break out of this way of thinking. You know, and to some extent that happens to us, that we're in this stage and we're playing roles, but then we begin to identify so much with that we forget who we really are. And so this is very, very powerful, understanding the material world and how it's a stage. Karma is also fascinating. Like gravity, karma is so basic. we often don't even notice it. So actually things are going, there's incredible causality in our life. You do this, this happens. If you act in this way, then these are going to be the ramifications. If you harbor this kind of attitude or mentality, it will result in this. But what happens is sometimes we've almost just become so programmed that we don't make the connections. And so understanding the law of karma helps us to understand that if I do this, this happens. And sometimes we only see karma when it's like immediate. Like, you know, I don't know, like you eat loads of sweets and then you get a sore throat. So you kind of see that causality immediately. But then karma helps you to see causality in a wider way. I do this and the ramification comes later on, but sure enough it will come. And what happens is, as you learn the law of karma, your ability to connect cause and effect, even when they're separated by time and space, becomes greater. And when you have that kind of understanding, then you can make incredible decisions. The fifth topic is time. We went to Apple today, so I had to put a quote by Steve Jobs. No one wants to die. Even people who want to go to heaven don't want to die to get there. And yet death is the destination we all share. No one has ever escaped it. And that is as it should be. Because death is very likely the single best invention of life. It is life's change agent. That's wise. Time basically takes away everything. I think like, why? Because time is the force of nature which takes away everything that's not us. And when time takes away everything that's not us, it's a painful way, but it's a powerful way to realize who we actually are. And so, in time, relationships are taken away because we define ourselves by relationships. It's not that you shouldn't have relationships, but you can't define yourself by that. We define ourselves by our positions. So time takes all of those away. We define ourselves by our abilities. So time takes that away. We define ourselves by our popularity. So time takes it away. Every artificial thing that we find self-worth in, that we cling on to, thinking that's me, what time does is it takes it away to help you realize who we really are. And that's why time is one of the most painful but also powerful teachers. And the final topic of the Gita is divinity, God, or Ishvara. And there's a beautiful quote by C.S. Lewis. If I find in myself desires which nothing in this world can satisfy, the only logical explanation is that I was made for another world. They ask people the top 4 ways in which you relax in the world. And you want to know what the top 4 answers were? See if you can see the connection between them. These are the top 4 ways in which people relax in the world. Number 1, go on holiday. Number 2, take intoxication. Number 3, watch a movie. Number 4, go to sleep. I'll say them again, tell me the connection. Go on holiday, take intoxication, go to sleep, watch a movie. Check out, escapism. It's amazing that what people are doing to relax is basically they're trying to escape their life. Because when you watch a movie, you forget your life. When you go on holiday, you forget your normal life. When you take intoxication, you forget your life. When you go to sleep, you forget your life. But how long can you sleep for? How long can you go on holiday for? How long does a movie last? And you can take intoxication, but there's the morning after, the night before. It's amazing. None of these are a permanent escape. Because what we're actually trying to do, the desire to escape, is so innate within us. But we don't know where to go to. And that is where yoga comes in. Because what we're actually looking to do is connect with spiritual reality. And when we do that, that's where we actually find the most sacred space, the sacred resting space, where we don't need to, where our search almost ends. And so that's why this fifth topic is very mystical topics. So isn't this beautiful? It's like once you understand these topics, it makes it so much easier to decode life. And therefore, one way you can see the Bhagavad Gita is that it's not a religious book, it's not just a theological or philosophical book, it's a life companion. Because what it helps us to do is navigate everything that we'll go through in this world by teaching us these most profound topics. Thank you very much for your attention and for your participation. So I don't know how we're doing, like with time. Do we have like some more time, or should we have a bit of time? So if anyone would like to kind of ask any question, or perhaps there's something I said which perhaps you may want to know more about, then yes. Yes, can you tell us your name as well?
Hi Krishna, my name is Alina.
Alina?
Hi Krishna. Yes, my name is Alina.
Alina.
Sorry, I'm just a little bit too attached to my holidays. So
holidays.
I was just wondering what is exactly wrong? Or
What's wrong?
No, not so much what's wrong with holidays, but it's like, what are the, because we all need to rest, right? We all need to kind of like just...
So
how
I
do we do
mentioned,
this?
I mentioned these 4 activities and how they're an escape, but they don't give us any permanent escape. So am I suggesting cut all your holidays out, stop going to sleep, no more TV or movies? No, I think even in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says that we need some time for recreation. There's a beautiful verse in the Gita. Yukta hara viharasya yukta chestasya karmasu yukta swapno vabodasya yogo bhavati dukhaha. Krishna says one who is balanced in work, recreation, eating, sleeping, can mitigate all of their kind of physical ailments and other things. So we need recreation time. You should have a holiday. I need a holiday. We all need a holiday. But what we're saying is that holiday in and of itself won't give you the permanent escape. It will give you some relief, and that relief is good. But what do we then do with that relief? Then we have to try to find a deeper solution. So it's like this. Option A. Would you like to go to a hospital which has only nurses but no doctors? Or option B, would you like to go to a hospital which has only doctors but no nurses? Which one? Both? Okay, well, you want both? Only nurses. 2 nurses. See, if you go to the hospital which has only nurses, then they'll keep you going day to day, but you'll never get out of the hospital. And if you go to a hospital which has only doctors, you may be pretty finito before the doctor even arrives to do an operation, because day to day no one's caring for you. So there are certain things in this world which give us day to day relief. And they're good. They're needed. They're like nurses. But then there are things which get us out of the hospital. And so if you only do these 4 things, but you don't achieve spiritual connection, then what happens is it's almost like you're not really solving your problems. So it's not that you shouldn't have it. We all want to be in a hospital where there are nurses, but we also need a permanent solution to get out. Does that make sense? So, by all means, go on holiday. And the way you can do it is just do something spiritual when you're on holiday, right? Then if you want to watch a movie, great, watch a spiritual movie. Then you relax and you make spiritual connection, right? Still finding out a way how to sleep spiritually. Do yoga and then sleep. There you go. And if you want to take intoxication, just chant Hare Krishna. That's the best. Stay high forever. Is that okay? Yes. Yes.
I was just thinking about the holiday could go on a yoga retreat.
Yeah.
And japa retreat or chanting retreat.
Yeah, we got all these like spiritual holidays that you can go on and retreats where you can energize yourself. So then you kind of get the best of everything. Yeah, thank you.
Eco Village.
Eco Village, yeah. We have a beautiful kind of place just close to Mumbai where you can go, and it's very wonderful. Yes.
Just looking at these 5 things. From my perspective, the most important thing in one's life is relationships, and they're the things that we want to hold on to more than anything else.
Yeah.
We can, we can lose our fortunes, but we still have our relationships. And looking at the paradigm that you've given, can you give us a little reflection on relationships? Beyond the confines of death, doubts, fortunes, and decisions.
Yeah, thank you so much. Yeah, relationships are what really define our life. Now, if someone would ask me the most valuable thing I have in my life, I think relationships and my friendships with others would come pretty high on the list. Feel like when you have people in your life who encourage you, who empower you, who enthuse you, it's like the greatest gift in your life. You can deal with anything, you can achieve anything if you have that. And so, yeah, relationships are so important. And the idea here is that when we realize that in relationships, it's never just 2 people. In relationships, there's always a third factor, which is the divinity, the supreme kind of spirit that pervades both individuals. And when we connect with others, but not just connect on a physical and emotional level, but we actually connect with each other spiritually, we try to contribute to each other spiritually, we try to serve each other selflessly, seeing each other as spiritual beings on a longer journey. And when we connect in that way, then we actually have the most beautiful relationships. Sometimes there's this notion that when you become spiritual, you just become like cold and detached and like, kind of like uninterested or unaffected by any kind of relationship kind of thing. I once, before I became a monk, I read a Buddhist book about monks, because I was like kind of priming myself to become a monk. And in this book it said, perfection for a monk is if you die and nobody knows and nobody cries. And as a 16-year-old, I read that, I was like, whoa, that sounds cool. And then later on I realized that actually beyond that, we're actually trying to become slaves of love. Actually, beyond that, we actually want to engage in real, deep, loving, affectionate relationships, but which are not just physically or emotionally, but are on the spiritual level. And so you find in the great teachers of our tradition, when someone leaves this world, they cry. There's deep sorrow, because it's not that now they got all this philosophy and wisdom and spiritual knowledge and no one ever dies, so it's okay. but they actually have deep love, and therefore they cry. But within that crying, there's also a deep connection. And so these are spiritual relationships, and by factoring in divinity to our relationships, we can actually connect on a much deeper level. Yes, please.
And there's the fundamental principle in all relationships. We don't want them to end.
Yeah.
And you think about all of the love songs that exist. They're either, I found my eternal lover, or I lost my lover.
Yeah. Last Christmas, I gave you my heart, and the next day you threw it away. All those kind of things, right? Yeah. Yeah, it's amazing. Frustrated love.
Never going to fall in love again until tomorrow. Yes.
Love is it's just such an innate thing that we look for. But yeah, all the songs in the world, so they're all about frustrated love. So that love that we so much seek must be available, but it maybe means that we have to begin connecting with people on a spiritual level. Then that love and that connection transcends time and space. That's very mystical, yeah. Thank you for raising that. Yes.
I wanted to just point out that when Srila Prabhupada was here, he said, chant and be happy.
Yeah.
And he said, happiness is our birthright.
Yeah, happiness is our birthright, yeah. We're looking for the right thing, just in the wrong place. So we seek that, but yeah, thank you. Yes.
Hare Krishna, thank you so much. We are incredibly grateful. We're incredibly grateful for having you here, and I connect with you a lot on YouTube and Instagram, so I'm grateful for the co-founders of those.
There must be a virus on your
Thank you so much. I was just reflecting upon, so in the beginning of the class, you were talking about enthusiasm, and somehow in my mind, I'm trying to rewire that, I've somehow connected spiritual realizations to like, okay, like life is going to like throw you onto the bed of thorns, and you're just going to go through so much hell, and only then you're going to like be spiritually realized. So can you expand a little bit about how can I still go through everything that life throws at me? And I think it's a battle for me to like fight every day, and kind of it's I try to be enthusiastic, but it's a battle for me. So how do I first of all rewire my brain so that I am like, okay, spirituality need not be hell, and how do I be enthusiastic? What does that entail?
Okay, so you're saying like life is a journey, like we had those two diagrams, and it's kind of like feels like the bottom one where there's loads of obstacles.
Yeah, at least in the bottom one, I think it still went up.
So we encounter all these obstacles, and how do we stay enthusiastic through all of these obstacles and not become tired or fatigued or just think like, where's the end of this? Just a few days ago, I was at Intel, and we were talking about obstacles. And what I was sharing with the employees there is that the obstacles in our life aren't actually the obstacle. The obstacle is three things. The mentality that, number one, obstacles shouldn't come. Number two, the mentality that obstacles are bad. And number three, the mentality that obstacles are insurmountable. If you are able to overcome these three mentalities, then what will happen is no obstacle will actually displace your consciousness, but will actually, on the contrary, empower you to do amazing things. Pain is actually an incredible change agent. If we look in our life, uncomfortable situations are the situations when, hands down, we grew the most. Perhaps the art of life is to become comfortable with the uncomfortable. So the first thing that Krishna explains in the Gita is that obstacles, the mentality that obstacles won't come, that's what frustrates us. Like we kind of just have this kind of unrealistic thing, you know, like Leo Tolstoy, he said, like, I know everyone has to die, but I was hoping an exception would be made in my case, you know. And even Yudhishthira said that when he was asked by Yamaraj, what's the most amazing thing in the world? And he very beautifully, poetically replied, Ahani ahani bhutani gachanti hayamalayam sheshasta varamichanti kimascharyam ataparam. He was asked, what's the most amazing thing in the world? Every day I see people around me leaving this world, but I think I'm going to live here forever. What kimascharyam ataparam, what can be more amazing than this? So there's a sense in which we kind of become shocked when obstacles come. Whereas when we're constantly in touch with spiritual wisdom, it's almost like we know this is a blueprint, this is part of the workings of this world. They're going to come. And just accepting before they even come that they're going to come means that when they come, they don't have as much of an effect on you. Whereas what most people do is they try to shut it out, like pretend it's not going to come. It's like, imagine if you're going to a movie and then someone's like, oh, you're like, oh yeah, I'm going to the movie, and they're like, oh, that movie? You'll never guess what happens at the end. You're like, oh, come on, man, like, don't tell me what happens at the end. Like, I can't enjoy the movie. So it's almost like we want to live in this ignorance of what's ultimately going to come so that we can kind of enjoy here. But then we get shocked. So the first thing is that by being in contact with knowledge and realizing that obstacles will come, just makes us okay when they come. That's the first thing. Second thing is that we have this mentality that obstacles are bad. And that is the hardest one to change. Because actually, obstacles are pregnant within them, are the greatest. They reorder your priority, they deepen your wisdom, they awaken gratitude, they build resilience. They're a great gift. And the third mentality is that we often face obstacles and we think it's insurmountable. I just can't. How much can I do? But there's this cartoon which says, you know, don't tell God how big your problems are, tell your problems how big God is. And so the idea is that by becoming connected to divinity and being empowered by that inner strength that divinity gives, we can actually become empowered to face anything. And therefore you find the greatest spiritualists, they kind of encounter the most like ridiculously difficult situations, and they're just like, okay, yes,
Two things. There's a saying that
get the mic.
There's a saying that obstacles emerge when you take your eye off the goal. So you set out on any journey with a destination, but then if you understand that, then you have a perspective on what's happening.
Right.
What appears to be an obstacle is just an indication, well, you just got to go around here. You can't, just don't keep trying to push, just go around. Or another example of that is with the Sherpas in the Himalayas. They're taught from when they're very young to when they're walking over any kind of terrain, they fix their sight on the horizon. And then everything from that point to where their feet are is in a perspective.
Okay.
So what appears to be an obstacle becomes a stepping stone towards the goal.
Okay, wow, that's beautiful.
And the other point about enthusiasm, the literal meaning you were saying about if you're connected spiritually, because there's artificial enthusiasm that we all get in the mode of passion, we get pumped up to do something. But the real meaning of enthusiasm comes from the Greek word, which is theos, that you are situated in godliness, or you are full of godliness.
Right, right.
So the real enthusiasm, and that's the first principle of yoga, actually, to be enthusiastic. So you want to connect, you want to be connected with the divine source of things. And in that way, you remain buoyant and optimistic in any circumstance.
Beautiful. Thank you. Beautiful points, yeah. Thank you. Yeah, Jim, out of you just tell us when. Yep, I'm carrying this.
I have a question regarding doubts. They creep up rather easily and are hard to get rid of. And one of the biggest doubts is, am I good enough to be in this mode of goodness?
You doubt your ability to
Yeah.
practice this spiritual path?
Yeah, and every now and then we deviate from that path and the doubt strengthens.
Okay, thank you so much. So how do we deal with that doubt? Yeah, sometimes we doubt so many things, but the thing we doubt the most is ourselves. Actually, I feel like that in my life, that I really, for a lot of my life, lacked a lot of confidence in myself. And I think I'm not alone in that. Like, we have everything at our fingertips, but if you don't have confidence, you can't move forward on the journey, you know? So how do we overcome doubts in ourselves? So I'll share a few things, the immediate things that come to my mind. The first thing is that when we doubt ourselves, sometimes we look at where we're trying to go and where we are, and we think like, that's a long way. But what you can also do is look back and see how far you've come already. Sometimes we're so focused on how far I have to go. But haven't you come so far already? If you can appreciate that, if you can acknowledge that, then what happens is you get the confidence that, yeah, I got a distance to go, but I've already covered quite a bit of distance by the grace of this spiritual practice. So that's the first thing I would say, is like, you can't receive more unless you're grateful for what you've already received. And so when we acknowledge that I have received, I am moving, I'm progressing, that gives us confidence. The second thing is, one person once said to me something which definitely changed my life. They said, the greatest gift you can have in your life is someone who has more faith in you than you have in yourself. And I was very fortunate in my life to find multiple people like that who just gave me more faith in me than I had in myself. And they were almost like, we have all this ability, but you just need someone to whisper in your ear, like, you can do it. And we all need that. And when we have those empowering relationships, we call them gurus, teachers, guides, mentors, is powerful. So that's the second thing I would say helps you overcome your doubts. And the third thing is, I think if you just discuss those doubts. Sometimes Arjun also had doubts at the beginning of the Bhagavad Gita, but he just opened. What happens is sometimes when we have a doubt, we just sit with it, and then it kind of becomes very, very corrosive, you know, and it kind of just discuss it and see and get another perspective. So I guess there could be many ways to answer that, but those are the three things which immediately came to my mind. Is that okay? Yes.
Hello.
Hi there.
Hi. Thank you for
What's your name?
this session. Krishna.
Krishna. Oh wow.
Okay.
Good name.
So I have two questions. First question: how did you find like your spiritual path or your purpose when you were exploring when you were younger? And how did you like land on something you're like, this is it for like the rest of your life? And then second question is, where at Apple Park were you today?
Oh, okay. That's top secret. Where at Apple Park were we today? We're in that mothership building. No, I was just joking. It wasn't Area 51. It's, you know, the main building, the round one? You work in Apple? Or?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
I'm just
we
wondering,
were there.
where were
Karavinda
you?
is here? Okay, okay. We were there. Yeah, we can let you know, yeah. There's a recording as well. You can get it if you like. Yeah,
Thank
we
you.
talked about redefining success. How did I find my purpose? Do you mean my life? When you say my purpose, are you talking about like my spiritual aspiration to kind of find God, or are you talking more about my life as a monk? Or both? Or
Both. I
both?
thought
Okay.
that would, yeah.
They're kind of both, yes, intertwined.
Kind of
yeah. So
related.
how did I find that? I have thought about this a lot, and I think I'm not like an atypical example, and that's not to say that I'm kind of special in any way. I feel like in my life I was very lucky. I, at a very young age, just seemed to kind of stumble into something that would just kind of naturally fit for me. As I was growing up, I was always always kind of gravitated towards simplicity, towards minimalism, solitude. Those kind of things came naturally to me. So it was confusing as a kid because I was surrounded by a world which was moving in another direction, and it just didn't resonate with my heart. And then I was lucky to come across monks, and then it just, everything kind of fell into place. So I think I was just very lucky. I found my calling as a monk, my life path happened without me trying much. Nowadays, as I travel the world trying to share wisdom with people, I think finding purpose is the most difficult thing people kind of grapple with. And so what I usually do is I give them 3 pieces of advice. Not from personal experience, because I was lucky, I found. But I think these 3 things help if you want to find your life purpose. I think the first thing is, number 1, I say analyze. Analyze your personality. Ask yourself questions like, what is it that I do even without being asked? What is it that I do that when I do, I just kind of lose sense of time? What is it that I do that I feel like I've been given an innate ability to do that I just do better than anything else I do? When we begin asking questions and looking at our personality, we realize that we've each been given unique abilities, character traits, personalities that we can use in contribution to the world. But sometimes we have to take some time to really think about that. Do a personality test. Try to understand. In Sanskrit, we say it's your varna, or it's your kind of psychophysical makeup. We each have a unique. The second thing is, I would say, ask, have mentors, have guides who can help you to kind of challenge your way of thinking and bring out the best and help you to find a life path that really works for you. And the third thing I tell people is just attempt. Just go out there and try things, try different occupations, try different, don't be afraid to explore and experiment. And what you'll do is you'll find as you go through that, attempting different things, something that really resonates with you. So yeah, we each have a contribution to make. Einstein said everyone is a genius. But if you convince a fish that it has to climb a tree, it will live its whole life thinking it's a failure. So often we try to imitate someone else's purpose, or we try to live someone else's life, or we try to emulate someone else's contribution, when what we're meant to do is find our own unique gift that we've been given by divinity and try to use that. So yeah, good luck in your journey. Thank you. Hey, your name?
Rai.
Rai?
Yes. So I think I have an issue with time. For me, like time goes really fast, and I am almost every week, once in a while, I just want to make sure I have enough time what I want to do, like relationships or do hiking on mountain, especially this area is beautiful weather and I like outdoor stuff, but I do want to be out of my comfort zone. Sometimes I make lists before I am 40, 50, what should I do? Because when I think of the past, like I used to study next to the ski place, but I never went because my priorities was like just study. Now when I go back, I'm so regret that I could have skied there. Or I don't want to do the same mistake, so I don't know how long I will live here, so I would like to enjoy more the relationship and outdoor, but I don't know how to do it. So do you have any wisdom about the time? How can I use my time?
Okay, so some wisdom about time, how to fit everything in you want to do into 24 hours. How do we do that? So sometimes I share with people some sutras of time that can help. The first one I share is that if time is utilized, then time expands. Oftentimes what happens is that we complain that we don't have time, but on the other hand, we waste so much time. And there's a sense in which, you see here, there's the topic of time, and it's actually, time is actually a representation of divinity. And the idea is that when you respect time, when you utilize time, then what will happen is time will expand. That's why you find these very, very eminent spiritual people, sometimes you look at them and you're like, how do these guys find time to do all this stuff? Like, they do so much things. It's like if you imagine Bhaktivedanta Swami, who started the Hare Krishna movement, it's like in 11 years, he circled the globe 14 times, opened 100 temples, wrote 60 books, gave thousands of lectures. It's just insane. How do you do it in that time? But the idea is that when time is utilized, time expands. So when we respect time, what we'll find is that divinity starts opening up more windows of time for us. But if we don't utilize the time that we do have, it's like if you're a parent and you have a kid and you give them $10 and they waste it. You're not going to be like, okay, I'll give you another $100 now. But if they take $10 and they really respect it and they utilize it well, then you're like, wow, so responsible, I'll give more. So the first thing I would say is when time is utilized, time expands. The second sutra I tell people is that when desire deepens, capacity increases. One of our spiritual teachers, he said something amazing. When one's desire is so great that they go beyond their capacity, but they continue on without hesitation, at that moment empowerment occurs. So when our desire to do something becomes very, very deep, there's a sense in which our capacity also increases. Oftentimes it's not a matter that I don't have time to do this. The problem is my desire to do it is not deep enough. Some things, it's not about having time, it's about making time. But to have that discipline to make time, one has to have a very deep desire. So that's another thing I say. When desire deepens, capacity increases. Another sutra of time is liberate two birds with one key. That's the non-violent version of it. In other words, try to integrate things in your life. In other words, there are ways to do things in which you can achieve two things at once by, instead of separating them, seamlessly doing them together. And in that, sometimes we compartmentalize my life, like this is the material part of my life and this is the spiritual part of my life, and I never have time for the spiritual stuff. But why can't we try to live a life in which we integrate it so that the material things which I do also contribute to my spiritual aspirations? And so, yeah, that can work on many levels. You can try to integrate things so that could be another one. So like this, there are ways. We have more time than we know, actually. And people's example shows us that you can actually get an incredibly amount, like insane amount of things done if we respect time in the right way. Some thoughts.
See, when God gives everything in abundance, we never say, why me? When we don't get anything, we ask, why?
Why me? Yes. When all the good happens, then it's like, yes, it was me.
When good happens, we never ask, why me? When bad happens, why not me? And then why me? Like that.
Yes.
So I just want to know how to develop.
Yeah, I've struggled with that one myself. Yeah, there's a sense in which we feel that, see, like what happens in life is we get blocked because we go into victim mentality. This is one of the biggest psychological problems that most of us have in our life, that we always feel ourselves to be victims. Anyway, we gave a whole seminar on that. But yes, victim mentality. Yes.
Hi, Barbara.
Barbara, nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you. I just wanted to say, kind of as a reflection, looking at these dots and the words below, that probably our greatest relationship is with Ishvara, God. And all those other dots there that are obstacles, they go away when we have our relationship with God and understanding that our soul is part and parcel of our Lord. Our action, when we surrender unto Krishna's lotus feet, then everything, the time expands, and our natures change.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing that. Yeah, sometimes it's as simple as that when we connect with that divine person, then what happens is everything makes sense. You know, like we kind of, they have this kind of analogy that if you have a jar and then you have a big stone, you have some sand and you have some water, and you want to put it all into the jar. Then if you put the water first, and then you put the sand, and then you try and get that big stone in, it's like a big mess. But if you put the big stone in first, and then you put the sand, then it kind of seamlessly just fits around. And then you pour the water in, then it just gets absorbed, and everything fits perfectly. So that's this whole idea that when we wake up in the morning, and before we engage with the world, we connect first with divinity. Then what happens is you're putting that first stone in. And then everything else you're seeing from that position of spiritual realization. And then it becomes much more easy to digest. And so this idea that before we do anything of this world, we connect with our deepest identity. And so that's why, having a morning routine of spirituality is so life-changing. Thank you. All right, yes, thank you so much, everyone. Really happy to be with you. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you. In ISV, the claps are always longer.
Thank you so much for, I don't know, I was looking at the clock, it felt like 5 minutes have passed maybe, but it's already close to 2 hours have passed, so, we can keep going. And that's what I think the spiritual vibration, as you spoke about, looks like, where when time passes, you don't know that it's passing. So thanks so much for this. I just had to go to Raj. I think there are a few announcements we made. Yeah.
Thank you so much. So as Prabhu mentioned earlier, Maharaj is a really prolific author. He's authored over 10 books, which are all quite incredible, and we're really fortunate. We've got 4 of them with us today. which we'll be selling right after the session. So I'll quickly go through what each of them are, and if any of you are interested after, you can come and see myself. So Maharaj spoke quite a lot on the Gita today. So we have 2 books actually, which
Hare Krishna, dear devotees. The lecture has ended. We'll close the session today. Hari Bol.
Thank you.